A new study by the Girl Scout Research Institute took a look at young girls in America today and compared their poverty level in 2007 to their current poverty level. And unfortunately, while it seems as though the economy has improved for some people in the U.S., the reality is that some are not experiencing those improvements. Now, before I get to the details of this particular study, which specifically focuses on girls, because it was done by the Girl Scouts, let me just note that about 44% of children overall in the United States are living in low-income households, okay? So what does that mean? That means a household that is bringing in less than $48,000 a year, and it's a family of 4 with 2 children. So just clearing that up. Now, if you focus specifically on girls, the number is also pretty bad. So today, 41% of girls live in low-income households, and that's actually up from 38% in 2007. Now, 2007, of course, is before the economic meltdown, like right before the economic meltdown. And so apparently, life hasn't really improved much for people who were impacted the most in the recession. Now, if you break the demographic down by race, you also see something pretty interesting. Now, in 2014, about 35% of black girls were living in low-income families, or low-income households, I should say. It was 31% for Latinas and American Indian girls. Multicultural girls, it was 20%, Asian American girls, 14%, and white girls, 12%. So you can see that there is a bit of an impact depending on what your racial background is. Also, the education space was one of the only areas in which researchers saw improvement between 2007 and 2014. So girls' 4th grade reading proficiency and 8th grade math proficiency improved 3 percentage points each, and the high school dropout rate decreased 1.4%. Now we'll see how that all, develops moving forward with our new education secretary, who has absolutely no experience in curriculum or public schooling or teaching. But nonetheless, at least there's been some improvement when it comes to the education of some of our students.
I'm glad you pointed out that last part. It was particularly bleak to read that, especially with regards to the word proficiency and knowing that our own education secretary is not familiar with the difference between proficiency and growth. Yeah, that was particularly disheartening. This was sort of an interesting thing to read through because it affirms a lot of what we have come to understand as progressives with regards to white privilege and how that is proven and the advantages that we have just being white. And that was sort of sad to read that has been pervasive for the past 7 years.
Yeah, it's been pervasive for a long time.
Right, right. But I mean, like, to see it statistically from 2007 to 2014, it's all, whenever it's easy to say anecdotal, like, I'm privileged as a white person because of the following things. It's a little bit more cold, hard truth when you have the facts and the numbers and the statistics in front of you. Right. So I like the combination of both. It's important to combine the anecdotal with the statistics.
Yeah, let me just add that, what I took away from this story more than anything, and yeah, the race component is certainly there, and it's something that we talk about a lot. But what I also, whenever I read news today and I read statistics and data about, the economic well-being of various communities, it makes me think about the election, and it makes me think about those who felt like they didn't have their voices heard for a very long time, right? And I want to understand them better. And when you really think about it, I think a lot of people can relate to the frustrations that these individuals had, right? Because you keep hearing the reports about how the economy has improved. You keep hearing the reports about how, consumer spending is up or consumer confidence is up. You see all of that reflected in various markets, including the housing market, right? But at the same time, if you think of yourself on an individual level, you don't really feel the impact of a positive or a progressing economy, or an improving economy, I should say. Like, if you really think about it, for the majority of people in the middle class and the working class, it's like, really? Things have improved? How have they improved? And so it's reflected in jobs reports, and it's reflected in the stock market, and it just sometimes doesn't make sense, It really doesn't.
I know. But what the interesting point you bring up is that we all experience the same frustrations, and the boogeyman is the same person. It's still government. It's still corporate influence over policies that corrupt the government. and it's still legislation that favors corporate interests over citizens' interests. And we see that with almost everything. And yet, a lot of people could make this, a lot of people could take this leap of faith and vote for Donald Trump. It wasn't just like racism, which a lot of people pointed the finger to. It wasn't any singular thing, but a lot of people believe that Donald Trump's campaigning, albeit it was negative, not as negative as Hillary Clinton's, and definitely better, it worked, and people could to take this leap of faith. But unfortunately for these girls, for people from different demographics like this, they can't do that. They don't have, and I hate using the term privilege because white privilege immediately triggers like 50% of the audience, but that's a fact that these people had the privilege to actually take this leap of faith, whereas a lot of people didn't. And what I wanted to talk about is like, does it affect you? If someone comes for you, like only until someone directly affects you, directly comes for you, only if the administration is doing something like, let's say if they curb back, let's say they increase gun legislation, only then would a lot of people mobilize. And that's unfortunate because
I think you're half right, half wrong. And what I mean by that is we are seeing people mobilize. We are seeing more political activism than ever before, honestly. Like every weekend there's a mass protest of some sort and having to do with, resistance to some of Donald Trump's executive orders. So I think that the one highlight to all of this madness is that people are now hyper aware of what's going on, and people who I would have never expected to ever pay attention to politics or even have a conversation about politics are now sharing their thoughts and their opinions, and they want to be influential, and that's a good thing. At the same time, I do think you bring up a good point about people who felt like, hey, maybe we really do need to stir things up, even if we're going to elect someone who's crazy, because we need to change the system. And the reality is, between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, there was only one candidate who talked about policy. Right? He wasn't specific about policy in terms of like the details and how he would get things done. But while he was talking about saving manufacturing jobs, Hillary Clinton was hiding out, waiting for the next debate, laying low, not having any press conferences, and not really talking about policy the way that Donald Trump did. He'd go to rallies.
But in the debates she did. In the debates she was way more.
It wasn't enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough. Look, Matt Taibbi, I keep bringing him up on the show just because he nails it every time, just was so right about the fact that Donald Trump spoke a language that resonated with a lot of Americans who are frustrated with the economic situation.
100%.
And what's coming out from the Girl Scout Research Institute affirms that.
Yeah.
That there were a lot of people feeling really forgotten for a long time, and he was speaking to those people.